G'day guys, today we're going to be running a bunch of really cool details on maintaining back control so that they can never escape your back control ever again. Make sure to stick around for the end to watch some rolling footage and I'll show you guys how I do this live. Okay guys, going to run some back control stuff today. When you're on the back, there's a few kind of principles that I want you guys to be thinking about, okay? So ultimately, there's two ways to think about it in the broad spectrum of ideas. One is the maintaining of the alignment of our center lines. The other is the maintenance of him between my legs, okay? So this is going to be our first kind of main overarching theme that we're going to touch on as we play through some different back control concepts. So when I'm in back control, okay, understand you have a series of different controls we have, okay? So our hooks are used to try and help us keep our partner's hips square to us, and our seatbelt is to keep the shoulders square to us, okay? So you have to think about the function of our grips, okay? So if I, for example, had two underhooks and two hooks in, if Dave tries to move and rotate left and right relative to me, he runs into this structure very, very well, and it means that my control is really, really solid, okay? So a big mistake I'm seeing a few people make is you get here and they have like short hands here and they're just kind of pulling tight through their seatbelt. And this doesn't really like facilitate control of the rotation, okay? So oftentimes what you want to think about doing is taking your elbow past your partner's shoulder such that now when he tries to turn to my left, my right elbow pinches the shoulder in, okay? So this becomes really, really important when you're playing for long periods here because you're not really thinking about squeezing with your arms into your chest, you're more thinking about the pinching of your elbows into their shoulders, okay? So when we're in this position, we're going to touch on a couple of important bits and pieces here. So when we're in this position and I have a strong upper body connection, okay, one of the things that can happen is Dave can try to spin his hips and look to try and rotate his shoulders toward the sky. And this is a real problem, okay? And when this starts to happen, I better have a good reaction. So just come back one sec. So when we're here, I'll oftentimes be at the ready to switch this into a high ball ride. So when he goes to rotate, I pinch my right elbow up, right elbow down, sorry, and look to take my left foot to the outside and lock a high ball ride here like so. Now in this position, my bottom hook is reinforced, okay? And now as Dave tries to turn his hips to the sky, it becomes very, very challenging and it pretty much is not gonna happen, okay? When we're in this position, we need to play a dynamic game because ultimately now there's some chances for him to try to shoot his left shoulder forward and rotate towards his knees, okay? And this would be shit, okay? So when we're in this position and he starts to try to rotate, I have to be ready to put his hook back in and scrape his hip back in towards me and monitor this top here like so. Okay, so some really good preliminaries on some basic ideas of control. Understand, guys, that this really only applies to the strangling side. If I'm on the underhook side, like so, now I'm in this position, okay, having this top hook out is a really, really big liability. So in the positional spars before, I saw some people playing in this posture. This to me is not the move because now, even if I have a strong pinch of my elbow, if I lose that elbow at all, there's nothing to stop him from cutting up to his knees, and then this is kind of a losing battle hanging on here, he slips his elbow. Okay, so understand, we really want to only play this high ball ride. It's not that you can't do it on the underhook side, but it's much more fundamentally solid when you play it on the strangle side. Like I would only use it intermittently on the underhook side at best, okay? So a couple of preliminaries on some control with centered around the alignment problem. Let's get into that, guys. The next little bit we're going to touch on is when we start to lose the connection at our upper body, okay? So particularly in the strangle side, when I'm playing this position, my hands can really only play in one of a very small number of positions. When I'm here, I don't have the same luxury that I do on the underhook side to play with unlocked hands for long periods of time. So when I'm here, pretty much I either want to have some variation of seatbelt or I want to have like a deep strangle hand of some variation where I'm up on my partner's shoulder. Everything else is kind of like a losing condition, right? So when we're here, a lot of the time what can start to happen is he can grab the end of the lever here and he can push my hands apart and start to cause big problems here. And this is like one of the main ways I see people lose back control. So you need to have a good plan when this starts to go because you can't just assume that you're going to be able to dominate the hand fight all the time. Occasionally it's going to go wrong, okay? Now, important on this, I have to do the next move when I have two hooks in or a body triangle. If I have a high ball ride, this is not the time. So if he splits my hands here, like honestly in this position, I need to think about like building for height and like maybe trying to get this hook back, honestly. Or if he's got his knee to his chest, now here I'm going to think about, getting up and focusing on covering this here, and I can't really do the next play if I don't have my top hook. So when we're here and he gets the hand control and I have my hook in, once we're in this position, a really valuable insight here is to understand that like he wants to pass this over his head, gets his shoulders to the mat, and then wriggle away from me. So what I'm going to do in this position here actually is fight to get a new underhook, okay? So I'm going to take a half claw on his shoulder, and I'm going to look to get up to my right elbow and do like a forward pressure with my chest to the back of his arm. And the basic premise here is like there's some kind of a limit to how much his hands can follow me back behind him. So when I push my chest forward, you can slip this hand quite easily, okay? And if it's difficult, you can honestly just hang here, because while he's hanging onto his hand, it's very hard for him to rotate away, all these things. And I'm just gonna think about like turning on a car and just kind of circling my hand as I push my chest forward so I can get my hand free. Once we're here now, I'm gonna look to give this shoulder a sharp pull. I'm gonna basically shoot my right hand in the space under his armpit. So as I kind of fall down, I know that space is gonna be here, okay? As I do, I curl this in to try and create some tension here. And what I want to think about doing almost out of the gate, because he's probably going to be trying to get his head to the floor, okay, is looking to try and switch into a grip over the top of his ear to pull this up and get my head under his head. Now I can sort of pivot off and get to the underhook side. So a really valuable retention when you're starting to lose your seatbelt on the strangle side, okay? So we're here, playing this position. He splits my grips open. I have 2 hooks in. I get up to my chest, wiggle my hand free, punch this in, regather the head and shoulders, and we're in good position to go to work on the other side. Okay, guys, let's give it a go. The next thing we're going to touch on is understanding a few bits and pieces on our seatbelt, and I think this is like when I started doing this is from when I was training with the guys at Roker and now Kingsway, where like they get a seatbelt on me, I just felt I was like completely stuck. And so when you're in this position, the conventional seatbelt works fine, but if you can ever get a palm-to-palm seatbelt, the advantages you have are exponential, okay? So the problem with this is that he's got very good access to my strangle hand here. So when I'm playing a seatbelt, if I'm not guarding this correctly, it's very easy for him to get his thumb in here, and this can be quite a robust connection, cause a lot of problems, okay? So if you contrast this, additionally, one of the other problems with seatbelt is that it's generally not that strong at stopping this shoulder from coming forward. Like, it's very easy. A lot of time you'll play this position and they'll start to rotate away, particularly when you're in different turtle scrambles and things like this. Having this ability to pull the shoulders in correctly is very important. So in this position, what we're going to do instead is going to try and look to go palm to palm, okay, and look to roll my fist into the front of his shoulder. Like if I can get in here, now when Dave tries to turn his shoulder away from me, it's so difficult, really, really challenging for him to get a primary defensive hand set correctly. Like he would love his hand in here, okay, but if I can get to this grip, it's very, very weak, okay? And on this, actually a cool trick that I saw from Less Impressed, More Involved, it's a really good YouTube channel as well, is when you have this thumb in, if you can get to this position and push this elbow down, it makes for very good access to try and come in and kind of get to this palm-to-palm position. So it's not quite as applicable when you're already in a seatbelt here, but to some extent, if you're here and you push this down, you can oftentimes get to this palm-to-palm seatbelt, okay? So on this as well, if you're here and we're playing this, when we're getting here, let's may as well look at this. So anytime I'm here and he's got a good primary defensive hand, there's a bunch of ways to try and peel this hand off, okay? Particularly when he's a little bit further up my wrist. Now I find that it's generally a little bit more tricky to peel the hand clean off my hand, but in these positions, it's not too difficult to go 10 finger and then climb into my palm-to-palm grip. And when I do this, I can pull my knuckles into the chest and I get to my palm-to-palm seatbelt here. Okay, so that's a bit on the palm-to-palm seatbelt, but I want you to look at this transition. So he has a primary defensive hand, okay? I'm gonna go palm up, 10 finger grip, and roll my knuckles. I use this to help access a palm-to-palm position, and I'm basically gonna think about pulling the back of my right hand in towards Dave's top shoulder while I flex my wrist away, and it's gonna clear that out a lot of the time. And you can obviously look to punch immediately into strangles from here, but just having this here when he tries to move around, tries to rotate, so difficult to get things going here. It's very, very robust connection, and it'll help you to maintain back much more effectively. Alrighty guys, give that a try. Okay, so it's not an exaggeration to say that a way we can kind of develop really strong back control is through the use of body triangles as well, right? So we've done a lot of work so far with like either 2 hooks or a high ball ride, okay? A lot of the time, however, body triangles are gonna be king. If you can get to something like this is gonna be really, really good, okay? Now, understand that in conjunction with not the last move, but the move previous, where we got this claw grip and punch this underhook in, there's a way to kind of mirror between the ideas we've been working on so far with maintaining the alignment with what we're going to do in a moment, which is this understanding of doing what's called an inside body triangle. Okay. From here in this position, I have a top side, outside body triangle, okay? If Dave rotates his hips and I get to something more similar to this, now I have what's called an inside body triangle, okay? Now an inside body triangle is a really good option, okay? And so what can oftentimes happen when you're playing in this position, he turns his hips up towards the sky, I'll lock this over the top here and tuck this in between his legs here, okay? Now, when I get here, if he tries to rotate, it's like comically difficult, okay? And now you have a lot more liberties you can take in terms of like how you play this position. So now, right, even if he's getting his elbow towards the floor, the lower body lock here when he tries to turn in towards me, it's pretty ridiculous, and you can actually just like push this away and get your underhook. Like you have all the time in the world because of the tightness of this body triangle. I believe there's also a move called a Scottish twister here, which is fun to explore. Is you can get to this position here, and you'll see you've lost the upper body. You're just going to pull this back. Basically look to swim your right hand inside, and I'm not going to rip it on or anything like this, but essentially you get here, control Dave's head, pull him in. That's all she wrote. So that's the Scottish twister, and it's like similarly controlling to this position. And if you just want to like traumatize blue belts, then it's a pretty good option. Alrighty guys, let's give that a try. Okay guys, so another thing we're going to touch on, all right, is you can cross your feet in back control. Controversial, I know. Big ankle lock wants you to believe that you can't do it, but you can, okay? So you have to understand a few bits and pieces about crossing your feet here, okay? I can't really play with cross feet for long periods of time with my 2 feet inside his 2 legs because he can triangle them over the top like this, and now from here he bridges through and you can start to think about getting to this finish, okay? Now, when you're here, go ahead and lock it good and proper. So nice, try to trap my 2 feet a bit more. Yeah, good. Right, the internet's gonna watch, they're gonna roast your footlock. So from here, as he bridges into me, understand that his ability to footlock me here is contingent on his ability to deadlift basically and extend his whole hip. So go ahead, put extension, and tap, good. So the simple concept I stole from John basically is if you're in this position and it's ever clutch and you're gonna get submitted with this fucking dumb move, you just need to disengage the upper body and take 2 hands and frame the back of his neck. Now when Dave goes to bridge as hard as he can, literally as hard as he can, Dave, send it, break my foot in half, please, please. The internet won't believe you. Okay, so here literally I'm fine, okay? Because if he can't extend his hip, you're gonna be fine, right? So all that's to say that we don't want to ideally have our feet caught in this position, okay? But playing with your feet crossed is not like wrong, but you have to understand what it's good for, which is gonna kind of build into my next point. The other way you can cross your feet, which is totally fine, is anywhere above the hip line, okay? You can play in these positions, anything like this. This is all totally fine. There's no risk at all here, okay? You just have to be mindful of this problem, okay? And if he starts to try and stuff your feet down, you just have to shorten this up potentially or play these positions or, you know, like you said, even if 1 foot is in, you know, this is like I said in the last position, like these inside body triangles, this honestly just locks me to him more, you know what I mean? Like I actually quite like this as good or better because now my hands are kind of much more free to try and attack things because his lower body's committed to my legs. Good. I feel pretty safe. And again, if it's ever clutch, I can always just push the guy's head away, right? Where I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna get submitted by this stupid shit. Just frame the head, and it's literally fine, okay? Cool, so I want you guys to experience this, and I want you guys to play with this crossed feet position, and start to realize that it's actually not that scary. You just have to know how to deal with the problem. Okay guys, let's give it a try. Okay guys, so now we're gonna look at this idea of keeping in between our legs, okay? And this is, again, some shit I stole from Gordon, basically. So conceptually, when you're here and your partner's trying to spin their hips, if I feel like when I'm playing this position, he's turning his hips towards the sky especially, okay? If I think about keeping my feet touching, like and keeping a closed loop between my feet, either through the use of crossed feet or what have you, when I'm playing in this position, now, like practically speaking, if I can keep his elbow trapped across my chest here, when he tries to turn away, it's not too difficult to try to keep him within my legs here. So although I've lost the alignment, okay, by keeping him bunched up between my feet, okay, either with crossed feet or foot to foot, now in this position when he tries to get away from me here and starts to try and escape, it's not so easy. And now in this position, it's pretty straightforward to come up with this claw grip here, build up to my knees, and come up towards mounted position, and then either flattening him in mount and staying behind his elbow to keep my initiative going, or looking to use this position, start to go in and chair sit and pull my man back across and get back to my back control. So practically, we can think about this cross-legged position, but ultimately this happens in a few stages, okay? So whilst I'm here, like the entry stage, okay, is when we're here. A lot of the time I think it's very important to consider having a long top hook. So as he goes to turn his hip, I'm gonna throw this leg over the top hip here like so, okay? Once I get this structure, what I'm typically gonna think about doing first and foremost before I try to come to mount is actually to shovel my hips back underneath him by reaching my right foot wide. And then from here, I'm gonna simply think about pulling my hip into my right heel and pointing my right knee to the ceiling. And this can oftentimes help to regather his hip and reline myself back up. So if I feel like I'm gonna lose it, this idea of like shoveling my hip underneath and pointing my knee to the ceiling can help to pull him across. So don't think about like pulling him across the floor here. It's not really gonna work, okay? You just wanna think about like using your knee to point up to the ceiling as like a scoop up on his hip. So now he tries to go to his right. There's a limit on it, how much he can move because of my right knee. And it's pretty straightforward to try and drop him in, put him on the other side, and just maintain my control. Okay? Now, when we're here and we feel that we're unable to turn him, so maybe he starts to turn and I'm playing this like long top hook here. Now here I don't feel like I have the depth to take him across. Now in this position, I can start to think about bringing my heel to my bum and pushing myself up off my right foot, keeping my chest behind his tricep, and then either chair sitting to pull him across or keep with the deep claw grip and flatten him out in his chest. But essentially, you can see this is a very different concept for maintaining back control rather than the alignment ideas we worked on before. So instead of thinking about like bolt the guy to me and keep our center line squared up, if you think about keeping him within your legs, you put him in this perpetual cycle of either back control or mount. And if you're in back control, it's obviously shit. And mount when you're behind their elbows is also really, really bad. And you could use it to play between the two of them and go into mounted attacks or back control. Okay, guys, let's give that a try. Okay, so last little tidbits we're going to run is going to be on the underhook side. So when we're playing in this position, generally speaking, you want to have either a long bottom hook with a hip posterior mount or a body triangle would be sick. It's not that you can't play with the 2 hooks in, but it's just not as good generally, okay? So from here, there's a few considerations to be had. One is head position. That's probably the most important out of the gate. He gets his head down towards the floor. That's no good. I'm pretty much going to stop everything I'm doing, pull his head up, get my head back under his head, okay? Now, one of the benefits of the underhook side is that I can play with unlocked hands and I can try to like get to my double cross wrist and trap his arm and all sorts of good stuff, okay? However, a problem with this is you have to understand is when you're playing with unlocked hands, you do run the risk of him going into turning escapes. So if I feel he starts to sit up and limp his shoulder away from me, so if he's here, let's go one sec. If he's able to control this wrist and slip his hand inside my shoulder, now in this position he can sit straight up and start to turn away from me. This can be a really big problem, okay? So basically, the main thing I want you guys to be considerate of is you can keep unlocked hands and play these positions for long periods of time, but anytime you feel your partner tries to sit out and away from you, go back to a seatbelt and focus on drawing his upper body down to your chest, okay? It's not a big revelation or anything like this. It's just understanding that when you're playing this position, we're mostly considered about head position and drawing his upper body into my chest so I can maintain control for long periods of time, okay? So there's a bunch of tidbits there. I'll just give you guys a quick feel of the underhook side, and we'll get into a bit of live work.
Okay guys, we're going to run some analysis of some backgrounds I do, first round with Jesse. Now, a big thing that I've noticed a little bit in my time with Jesse here is that he's bridging into me directly. And this can sometimes stifle people, but honestly, it's not that bad for me defensively, because essentially what happens is he doesn't really commit to a side. So what this enables me to do is to commit to 2 strangle hands. And you'll see me cycle between a seatbelt and 2 strangle hands simultaneously, and I'm able to do this because he doesn't commit to a side. Now that he's fallen to a side, you'll notice I have my right underhook, and then I play a little bit with some liberties when I have a body triangle here, especially with the inside body triangle, because I know he can't really rotate too easily while I have the inside body triangle. So this is what's allowing me to play with no underhook here. And you see I'm trying to use essentially like a hidden hand kind of method where I look to try and basically wrap his head with one arm and then switch it through transition to the other side. Here I focus a little bit on bellying him out, because the threat here is if I belly him out, it's pretty easy to lift the jaw. Now, JC's doing a nice job of staying up here, but this elbow caught underneath my armpit here is actually what's going to enable me to get my finish here. Just kind of gets a little bit misplaced. So by keeping my right elbow and right knee kind of connected here, now I know that when I fall off to the side, I have the setup for a lat juji, basically. And so there's this little moment here where I kind of almost fall off the side and I'm starting to lose the upper body, but I'm still covering the back of his shoulders. And so I kind of basically kip my hips up and around so I can start to try and gather up his head. So it looks a little bit white beltish for a moment there, but I frame his head out, get his hand tucked behind my armpit, control his defensive hand for a nice easy lat armbar. But yeah, that was pretty good. But yeah, the lat armbar was very sneaky. Here now with Ben, in this position, I do a pretty good job of maintaining alignment. You can see he's trying to turn down and my top hook is really saving me. I threaten his neck, but he does a decent job of re-establishing his primary defensive hand. He swam through to a 2 underhook situation. This is pretty good. I just have to watch for his height in the position here. Like I don't want him to bridge over me. But so that's why you see me throw my left arm back in as a seatbelt. And now I'm starting to try to control the double cross wrist. And I'm thinking about trapping his top arm, but he's doing a nice job of kind of blocking my legs. If he can capture one of my legs between his legs, he can really nerf my arm trap. That's what you're seeing here, but I managed to hold him in position long enough to get this foot trapped over the waist, where my right heel is in his chest. And then I, from here, drop him onto the strangle side, where his bottom arm is caught, and it makes for a pretty easy job of putting pressure on the face here. And then from here, I peel his defensive hand off, and I'm able to go palm over the shoulder and get to a strong finish. Now here with Dave. Dave is a grizzled black belt veteran, and he's very tough, which is painful for my life. But when we're here, basically same sort of situation before with Jesse. When he's bridging into me, it's not really committing to either side, so it makes it kind of not that dangerous for escapes. But he's definitely a rock of a human to try and break through. Yeah, here you see I'm trying to control his primary hand, and he does a nice job of trying to get away from me. I really wanted to get to a good seatbelt here and control his far underhook, because if you notice, I have my left hook in, so if I can control this shoulder, it'll be pretty good for me. I honestly feel like in this position, I'm not going to get the bite on the shoulder that I want. So then my new priority becomes like find a way to control the far side in some kind of way. So here I managed to wedge my way into the beginnings of a twister hook here by stepping on the back of his knee. And this is me here threatening his far leg, because ultimately if I can control the far leg, then I can get some control. And you just saw me capture that arm as he started to post on the floor. And this really does enable me to get my attack off. So he keeps a very strong grip here, and what I'm able to do here is basically pry his hands apart by wedging my elbow into the back of his hip and then going like a figure 4 grip. This allows me to tuck him in, and I tell him that he's under arrest, and I do this goofy ass shoulder lock. So thank goodness for tight shoulders from Dave there. Here again with Jesse. He comes in and he again bridges into me, which kind of allows the body triangle and all these things. And so now I'm pretty comfortable to take my underhook out at least a little bit. And so I'm actually playing with double underhooks for now, and you can see he's limping his shoulder away, so I'll probably throw a strangle arm over the shoulder to try to pull him back. I'm trying to get in front of the jaw there. Yeah, nice. I managed to get the shoulder, but because he was turning down, I was kind of worried about him getting up here, and I start to play to like this almost like armbar-esque grip here with the straight wrist. Just I thought he maybe was going to give me some clearance to try and pivot my hips across. But now you can really see the strength of this inside body triangle. I'm doing it as a bottom side inside body triangle right now, so it's a little bit less strong, but still very, very annoying for him to deal with. Yeah, and just kind of repeatedly throwing strangle hands. Honestly, a lot of this is like just throwing the strangle hand in just around the head, just to kind of keep him honest. Whenever you threaten a strangle hand, a big concept that Gordon talks about is this idea of like, if you can force them to be defensive at the upper body, it makes it very hard for them to deal with the lower body. So I'm pretty much just harassing cross grips and harassing his head. Here's an interesting moment here. I start to kind of threaten this reach around the neck. He does a nice job of building to his knees here. In this position, I actually feel like I'm a bit high, and I don't really like my ability to stay stuck to him. I thought he was maybe going to roll. So I actually dismount here, and I put this little outside hook in right behind his ankle. So what this does is it really puts his hip into like a weird like valgus fault for his knee, where it's like internally rotated. And this allows me to break him down pretty easily, and then I can reestablish my control. Notice here, guys, I'm using this principle of diagonal control to keep his top shoulder aligned up with me, because if I don't have that, he would just turn out and away. And you'll see me pulling on the shoulder here, doing this palm-to-palm type action, just trying to draw him in. I'm basically using my twister hook here to keep him stuck while I climb back up to my seatbelt here, and then again reaching deep around the head here. This allows me, because again his hands are occupied upstairs, to reset my legs in a pretty good position, and yeah, then basically just harassing the head. And Jesse, to his credit, Jesse's only a white belt, but he's got some quite robust hand fighting here. He's quite annoying to put away, and it really speaks to the quality of like the defensive principles that I basically try to yap on about. But yeah, even here, trying to trap his top arm, you see it as quite a common defense, which is to lift this elbow up. Pretty slick for a white belt. I'll give him some credit. But yeah, this common problem, there's a couple of nice little solves here. So I have to actually bust out some black belt jiu-jitsu to solve this problem. That's a foreshadowing, because I'm going to hit some sneaky shit in a minute. But yeah, here still again, you can see how by keeping him between my knees with this body triangle, pretty much have no real threats of him escaping. There's some alignment problems that I'm running into with the upper body, but when you learn to play for long periods of time, you'll eventually get your breakthrough. All these rounds have been without any rest as well. Like a lot of time you can get very tired doing back control, but if you're efficient and you understand how to control the position, it's not too bad. Here actually is quite interesting. I actually elect to undo my body triangle and allow his hip to turn, because I want to put this hook in here like so, because I'm actually going to threaten to turn him belly down like this. So I allow myself to reestablish the hook, I wanted to turn his head here to try to force him into a bottom side strangle side. And again, very robust hand fighting here from Jesse. Here, yeah, getting around his head and like by keeping him within my knees, like the main topic of the video was covered. Yeah, here I do a sneaky thing. So because he's kicking his elbow up here, I actually step on his bicep. It's a trick that John showed me, and I use this to climb into a ankle senkaku, which was pretty rude to do to a white belt, but Jesse deserves it, so it's all good. And then, yeah, so he does a good job of staying solid here. I start to threaten an Americana here on Jesse, and he does a really good job of building for pressure. Obviously, I'm not wrenching it because I don't want to wreck Jesse's shoulder or anything, but then I end up switching into a far-sided tricep grip and drawing his elbow over my shin, and this really cinches the ankle senkaku in very solid. Very hard to defend from this one, and managed to put him away with the strangle.
Thanks so much for watching, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe. Comment down below, let me know what you want to see next, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Oops.